But the question is, who is really calling the shots? Is it Trump or Netanyahu? Will Netanyahu defy Trump once again? We're decoding that shortly. Also on the show for you tonight, telling you all about how Asim Munir's bloody crackdown in POK is leading to fury on the ground. A GRAVITAS special coming up as we decode China's rising atomic arsenal and the implications. All this and lots more coming your way. A new dangerous chapter has started for West Asia. Will the hours and days ahead see resumption of war or a peace deal? That's the big question. And as of now, there's a fine line separating the two. But who really holds the key to that answer? Who is really calling the shots? Trump claims he does, but Netanyahu has once again defied him. And while the number of times Netanyahu has defied Trump keeps shooting up, along with the tensions in the region, is Netanyahu the one actually calling the shots as Trump fails to rein him in? And will Netanyahu defy Trump once again? The region has witnessed that dangerous escalation with Israel and Iran exchanging strikes. US President Donald Trump demands that Israel and Iran immediately stop shooting. This came after attacks that threatened to wreck the US-led efforts to broker a deal to end the war. So the timing of that escalation has been crucial. Israel hit a petrochemical plant in southwestern Iran that it said was used to produce ballistic missiles. Iran's IRGC, meanwhile, said they retaliated with a strike aimed at a similar Israeli facility in the city of Haifa. The exchange followed Israeli strikes on strongholds of Iran-backed Hezbollah in Beirut over the weekend. Remember, Tehran has repeatedly said any deal with Washington to end the conflict must include a halt to Israel's campaign in Lebanon. In fact, an Israeli military official reportedly said on Monday his country was prepared for a range of options in Iran from several days to as long as it takes, adding that it had struck Iranian air defense systems that were being rebuilt after previous Israeli attacks, as well as the petrochemical plant. An Iranian military source reportedly, quoted by the Tasnim news agency, said Tehran was prepared for a prolonged conflict with Israel and for renewed strikes against US interests in the region. And what does Trump have to say? Earlier in the day, he posted this on Truth Social. I'm quoting, "Both sides, Israel and Iran, are looking to do an immediate ceasefire. Final negotiations on peace are proceeding, subject to ignorance or stupidity getting in its way. The blockade will remain in place and in full force and effect. Until a final deal is reached, things should move quickly." Quote unquote. That is what the US president said earlier in the day on the platform. So while Trump is declaring final negotiations on peace are proceeding, he admits it is subject to what he calls ignorance or stupidity getting in its way. This, of course, is not the first time we are hearing such words from the president, and he is once again sounding optimistic in spite of the volatility the region has seen in the last 24 hours, both on the ground and otherwise. But is this once again an attempt to show everything is under control? What really is happening behind the scenes? Let's also tell you about a report earlier by NBC News. The Pentagon is increasingly concerned about Israel ramping up its spying on the US, recently raising the counterintelligence threat level from Israel to the highest level. The report says the Pentagon's Defense Intelligence Agency in recent weeks issued the new counterintelligence threat assessment amid the rising tensions between Israel and the US over the way forward in the war with Iran. The level for Israel, according to the report, has been raised to critical, and the designation reportedly stemming from concerns within the Pentagon that Israel is making a particular effort to surveil top US officials to get information on the Trump administration's internal deliberations and decision-making on the conflicts in West Asia. All of this coming at a time when questions have been growing over where things really stand between Trump and Netanyahu. From Trump's earlier heated call with Netanyahu, where he reportedly used strong words to lash out at the Israeli leader, Trump has insisted he is calling the shots now. But the fact is that he felt the need to declare that. And that only adds to the growing questions about how much control he really has, because Netanyahu has defied him once again. And his repeated defiance has been viewed by analysts as a way to try and jeopardize attempts to arrive at a deal. Will he do that again? And will Trump be able to arrive at that deal with Iran? Or will the region hurtle towards an escalation? Or will there be resumption of war? As the world watches on, a lot depends on the answers to those questions. Even as Pakistan continues that farcical attempt to project itself as a peacemaker, its actions on the ground telling a very different reality. People living in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, POK, are at the receiving end of a severe crackdown by Asim Munir's forces simply for voicing their dissent. The situation in POK remains extremely volatile as a curfew has been imposed. Internet blackout is in place. The visuals depicting the story in itself in a brutal crackdown on the locals. The police and the Pakistan Army personnel opened fire and tear gas at them. As per Reuters, over 70 people were injured, whereas at least 11 people were killed in the clashes. Take a look. Authorities have also banned public gatherings in several parts, including Muzaffarabad. Officially, Pakistan claims 4 law enforcement personnel and 3 members of the Joint Awami Action Committee, or JAAC, were killed. But this claim could not be independently verified, as internet services have been suspended in the area. At the center of the latest row is the JAAC, a civil society organization formed in 2023. Since its inception, in fact, it has been agitating over issues like electricity tariffs, inflation, political rights. It called for a protest on the 9th of June to demand abolition of 12 seats occupied by Pakistanis in the so-called Legislative Assembly. Thereafter, JAAC was banned by Pakistan. While local authorities claim that this organization is engaged in what it calls terrorism and is acting against peace and security, protesters see this as a move to silence the voice of the people. And while the Pakistani authorities accused JAAC of committing violent activities in Rawalkot over the weekend, the civil society group stressed that the armed forces had attacked a peaceful vigil. Meanwhile, security has been ramped up there, with the Shehbaz Sharif-led government rushing paramilitary forces to the region. Amid all of this, the locals remain firm in agitating for their rights. Listen to this.
To public sentiment, they will not back down from their struggle for their rights and will continue to raise their voices through all democratic and constitutional means available to them.
And after the local authorities issued a warning to the tourists against visiting POK, Until the 20th of June, foreign embassies have stepped up a vigil. For instance, the US and Canada advised citizens to avoid areas with large gatherings in POK. Similarly, Australia's envoy to Pakistan asked travellers to avoid visiting POK due to the present turmoil. The POK crackdown has become a key issue in the UK as well. A group of MPs, in fact, wrote to Britain's foreign minister over the dire situation in POK and urged him to address the communication blackout and arrests. While independent MP Iqbal Mohammed called for lifting the restrictions and resolving the situation through peaceful dialogue, Islamabad took offense clearly to this and emphasized on non-interference. In fact, Imran Khan's party, PTI, alleged vote rigging in elections held to the so-called Assembly of Gilgit-Baltistan. India's Ministry of External Affairs, meanwhile, lodged a strong protest with Pakistan over these polls and flagged grave human rights violations, political repression, economic exploitation in the illegally occupied territories. And as Pakistan continues that brutal crackdown on civilians, the brutality of Asim Munir's forces has been exposed yet again. Nuclear powers are increasingly moving warheads from storage to active deployment systems. Of the world's over 12,000 nuclear warheads, about 9,745 remain available for potential use. The latest report by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, says China is expanding its nuclear arsenal fastest, with more ICBM launchers than either Russia or the United States. Take a look.
A silent transformation is unfolding inside China's military machine. While wars dominate headlines, Beijing is quietly building something far more consequential. A nuclear force growing at a pace few can ignore. And according to a major new assessment, the world's strategic map could be changing in real time. The biggest military story in the world is not unfolding on a battlefield. It is happening deep inside missile fields, underground facilities, and heavily guarded military complexes across China. A new report from SIPRI, one of the world's leading security research institutes, suggests China is reshaping the global nuclear stockpile faster than any other nation. The findings point to an unprecedented buildup that is drawing attention from capitals across the world. China's nuclear inventory has now reached an estimated 620 warheads. The numbers still remain below those of the US and Russia, which together possess the overwhelming majority of the world's nuclear weapons. More striking than the number itself is the speed of growth. Analysts say Beijing has been adding roughly 100 warheads every year since 2023. The SIPRI report also points out that China had more than 775 missile silos by January, with more ICBM launchers than either Russia or the US. At its current pace, China's ICBM arsenal could reach parity with both nuclear powers by the end of the decade. SIPRI warns that the world is moving away from the post-Cold War period that saw gradual reductions in nuclear arsenals. Instead, major powers are investing in stronger deterrence, faster deployment capabilities, and next-generation weapon systems.
In the absence of arms control that put limits on the deployment and manufacture of nuclear weapons, and with the end of nuclear arms control, we are also seeing less transparency when it comes to nuclear weapons.
The choice facing leaders is stark. Will they stabilize through talks and arms control, or will competition harden into a higher stakes reality? Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
Is Xi Jinping quietly endorsing North Korea's expanding nuclear weapons stockpile? That is the big question hanging over Xi's high-profile visit to Pyongyang. In fact, North Korea rolled out the red carpet for the Chinese leader. Kim Jong-un drove to the airport to receive Xi Jinping. Xi and his wife were greeted by Kim and the North Korean First Lady upon their arrival in Pyongyang. And what followed was a full military parade that was organized in Xi's honor in Pyongyang. National flags of both sides flew across the capital. Giant portraits of the two leaders dominated the cityscape. However, the official agenda of the visit still remains unclear, but both leaders are slated to hold a summit to further strengthen their ties. This is Xi Jinping's first overseas visit to North Korea this year and his first in 7 years. More importantly, this two-day visit comes just weeks after Trump's visit to Beijing. The Trump-Xi meet in Beijing last month stabilized US-China ties and restored dialogue between the world's two largest economies, especially after the tariff and trade war last year, remember. But Xi's visit to Pyongyang could be worrying for Washington. The US and North Korea, remember, have been adversaries for decades. They are also considered arch rivals, the center of that tiff being North Korea's expanding nuclear program. Just days before Xi's arrival, Kim Jong-un visited a newly inaugurated nuclear materials production facility. He declared that North Korea would continue rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal. Kim Jong-un boasted that the country's weapons-grade nuclear material production capacity had more than doubled over the past 5 years. So the timing of Xi's visit cannot be discredited, of course. It comes at a point when Kim Jong-un is also openly celebrating the expansion of his nuclear capabilities. And Beijing has always maintained that they want denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. But in international politics, it's not about leaders, what they say. It's about what they send out through messaging, the posturing. The image of Xi Jinping standing shoulder to shoulder with Kim Jong-un just days after the North Korean leader vowed to expand his nuclear arsenal will inevitably trigger questions in Washington as well as South Korea, who have raised alarm over the nuclear agenda of their neighbor all this while. In fact, China also, the so-called endorsements towards North Korea, the messaging, becoming even more relevant considering the depths of the China-North Korea relationship. China is North Korea's most important economic lifeline, after all. It accounts for the majority of its official trade. As international sanctions continue to isolate Pyongyang, its dependence on Beijing has only grown. Trade between the two sides has remained robust and has risen sharply in the early months of this year itself. North Korea relies on China for just about everything, from fuel, food to machinery, electronics, vehicles. Chinese ports and companies also serving as critical gateways for North Korean exports to reach global markets. Beijing historically possesses the most leverage over Pyongyang because North Korea relies on China essentially for up to 95% of its trade, reportedly. So this is why Xi Jinping's visit there is also being watched very closely. Because at a time when North Korea is expanding its nuclear capabilities, Xi Jinping has chosen to publicly reaffirm its ties with Kim Jong-un. Britain is on the verge of an acute strategic dilemma. The question haunting UK at this time is, what happens if a war breaks out? That's because its entire fleet of nuclear attack submarines, in fact, are reportedly stuck in ports. And that's not all. Budgetary constraints are forcing Britain to cut plans to acquire nuclear-capable fighter jets, reportedly. Take a look.
Modern warfare demands readiness across land, air and sea. For maritime powers, submarines and air power are key deterrents. But sustaining advanced military systems requires vast funding and industrial capacity. When maintenance and overhaul sideline critical assets, serious capability gaps emerge. Reports suggest all Royal Navy attack submarines are currently in port for maintenance or repairs. Critics warn that having no attack submarine immediately available could limit operational flexibility amid rising global tensions. The second challenge is unfolding in the air. Britain is reportedly considering delaying or scaling back its plan to buy 12 nuclear-capable F-35A fighter jets. The $1.3 billion program announced by Prime Minister Keir Starmer is under review amid budget pressures and funding disputes. The F-35A jets are capable of carrying the US-made B-61 tactical nuclear bomb, offering a lower yield option compared to Britain's existing Trident nuclear system. Together, the two issues have intensified a broader discussion about Britain's defence posture. The war in Ukraine has transformed security calculations across Europe. Governments are reassessing military readiness, ammunition stockpiles, industrial capacity, and long-term deterrence strategies. British officials continue to emphasize that the country's nuclear deterrent remains operational and that defense commitments to NATO are unchanged. But the questions are unlikely to disappear soon, as military competition intensifies and European security enters a more uncertain era. Britain faces increasing pressure to ensure that capability, readiness and resources move forward together. Bureau Report WION, World is One.
And before we go on, a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We're getting you a detailed report on the situation in the Philippines after that powerful earthquake jolted the country. A GRAVITAS special coming up on how Indians in America are left stunned as a Telangana student is shot dead. Can being lonely turn into a trend? It seems to be happening already. We are telling you more about this, all this and more coming up. At least 35 people have lost their lives after a massive earthquake rocked the Philippines. Over 130 people injured, about a dozen still missing after the 7.8 magnitude earthquake wreaked havoc in this country's south. The earthquake struck at about 7:37 a.m. local time. Children were in school when the tremors hit, and videos like this one began emerging from the country.
Lingkod lang! Lingkod lang! Lingkod lang! Lingkod lang! Lingkod lang! Lingkod.
The earthquake struck off the coast of the Philippines, Mindanao Island. The city closest to the epicenter was General Santos City in the island's south. Aftershocks followed the earthquake, with the largest one registered at magnitude 6.5. The earthquake initially triggered a tsunami warning in the Philippines and other nearby countries as well. However, the warning was later rescinded. General Santos City was among the areas that bore the brunt of the damage. Buildings collapsed across the city of 700,000 people, trapping some beneath the rubble.
Oh my God. All I can say now is, I am just waiting for his dead body. I no longer expect him. There is nothing I can do anymore. All I can do is cry, imagining the good things he did in the world.
Rescue operations continued into the night as about a dozen remained missing. Meanwhile, water and electricity supplies have been cut in some parts of the city.
There is no water, no electricity, and there's been a blackout. When I got home, there was no electricity and water. We are all affected. We don't have anything to drink.
The Philippines faces earthquakes regularly. That's because the country is on a seismically active zone known as the Pacific Ring of Fire. Last October itself, Mindanao was rocked by a pair of earthquakes of 7.4 and 6.7 magnitude. At least 8 people lost their lives in those earthquakes. But today's earthquake was deadlier, and it has shaken the people of the country naturally.
It was really strong. We've been through several earthquakes here before, but the one that happened earlier today, it was much stronger.
Shifting focus for now to India. A month after suffering defeat in the West Bengal Assembly elections, the state's former Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee is facing yet another setback. Her party, Trinamool Congress, is on the cusp of a major split. And the signs of that have been showing for a while now. From assembly members to the parliamentarians, TMC is finding it difficult to keep the flock together. In the latest, rebel Trinamool Congress MP Kakoli Ghosh has written a letter to the Lok Sabha Speaker, Om Birla. According to Ghosh, the letter bears the signatures of at least 20 TMC MPs who are willing to join the ruling NDA alliance. And this comes after Kakoli Ghosh and 10 other TMC MPs held a meeting at the BJP leader Bhupender Yadav's residence. Shatabdi Roy, Kakoli Ghosh, Abu Tahir Khan, Khalil Rahman, others were present at that meeting. Sukhendu Shikhar Roy, who quit the party earlier, was also among the attendees. Kakoli Ghosh was previously removed from the post of party's chief whip, remember, and she called her removal arbitrary and unilateral and claimed that she remains the chief whip of the Trinamool Congress in the parliament. With 20 TMC lawmakers backing the move, the rebel camp appears to have crossed the threshold required under the merger provisions. If recognized, the group could seek protection from disqualification under constitutional provisions. The parliamentary revolt, also coming after rebels in the state assembly secured the position of leader of opposition for Rituprata Banerjee. She secured support from 58 of the party's 80 MLAs, in fact. Mamata Banerjee clearly facing the biggest rebellion since the inception of Trinamool Congress. Four years ago, Telangana-based Anshul Kuncha went to the United States with a lot of hope, big dreams. He went there to pursue his MBA. Subsequently, he even landed a job as a data analyst. However, His life was tragically cut short after being shot dead at point-blank range in America's Philadelphia, reportedly. The 28-year-old Indian worked as a part-time pizza delivery executive during weekends to supplement his income. Past midnight on June 5, he was lured to a vacant apartment, allegedly, in North Philadelphia for making a pizza delivery. Subsequently, he was found dead with a gunshot injury at the back of his head, reportedly. And while searching the apartment, the police found 3 untouched pizza boxes, which indicated perhaps that Anshul completed the delivery before being murdered. As per the Philadelphia police, 2 people in dark attire wearing a backpack were seen following him. As of now, the police are offering a reward of $20,000 for information that leads to an arrest and conviction in this case. Investigators reportedly also probing whether the individual who placed the pizza order is linked to the murder. Now, just imagine what Anshul's family back home is going through. The family currently residing on the periphery of Hyderabad. It's worth noting that Anshul completed his engineering from Hyderabad and worked for multiple firms before moving overseas. His family members have appealed for expediting the return of his remains to India. And speaking to the media, his sister said Anshul had been a victim of robbery in the US before this, when his chain, phone and cash were stolen, allegedly. She alleged that the pizza delivery was a trap intended to kill him. And in an emotional appeal, she also urged families not to send their children to America. Listen to this.
This is a message to all the parents that want to send their kids to the US. మా అన్న చాలా లవింగ్ అండ్ చాలా జాయ్ఫుల్ పర్సన్. హీ హ్యాడ్ నో యూస్ టు గో టు ద యుఎస్, బట్ పంపించాం మేము. హీ డెంట్ వాంట్ టు గో టు ద యుఎస్ ఆల్సో. కానీ వెళ్ళి లుక్ వాట్ హీ ఎండెడ్ అప్ ఇన్. Do not send your kids to the US. This is a message.
The Indian consulate in New York expressed its condolences over the murder. It said, I'm quoting, "The consulate is in touch with Anshul's family and is extending all possible assistance." Anshul's murder has also brought into focus growing concerns about the safety of Indians who go overseas for higher studies. On its part, the government of India has stressed that it accords high priority to safety and security of the Indian students abroad. A murder inside a locked apartment in East Delhi. A trail of CCTV footage and a police hunt stretching across multiple states. Within just 3 days, Delhi police has solved the shocking murder of a Delhi University professor. They arrested a couple from West Bengal who allegedly traveled nearly 1,400 kilometers to execute a killing that investigators say was driven by greed and a property dispute. Here's a detailed report.
What began as a mystery inside a 6th-floor apartment in East Delhi soon turned into a high-stakes investigation spanning hundreds of kilometers and several states. Debusmita Paul, an assistant professor at Shivaji College, was found murdered inside her Vasundhara enclave home. With few immediate clues at the crime scene, investigators began piecing together the victim's final hours. CCTV footage provided the first big lead. Police say a couple from West Bengal's Bardhaman arrived at the professor's apartment complex wearing masks and carrying bags. Accompanied by their minor son, they allegedly entered the building without raising suspicion. Investigators believe the accused had come prepared. They carried the weapon used in the killing and gained easy access to the professor's flat under the pretext of a visit. But their escape gave a vital clue as they fled in a car. The driver's account and ride details proved crucial. After analyzing footage of over 200 visitors, police narrowed down suspects and conducted raids across 4 states, eventually tracing the trail to Bardhaman. As the probe unfolded, a motive emerged. Police say the murder may be linked to a bitter property dispute. Debusmita Paul had inherited a multi-crore property in West Bengal, where the arrested couple were allegedly tenants, asked to vacate. Investigators suspected the 1,400-kilometer journey to Delhi was part of a planned murder to seize the property. The accused are in police custody, with further questioning expected to reveal more about the plot. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Our next story is from Japan. A pregnancy rarely generates national headlines, but in Japan, this has happened. Shoko Kawata has defied traditional norms to avail a maternity leave, making her the first mayor in the country to do so while in office. Due to give birth in mid-September, Kawata, the mayor of Yawata city, will take 14 weeks of maternity leave, 6 weeks before childbirth and 8 weeks thereafter. And during her absence, the deputy mayor will exercise mayoral authority while reporting on major matters to her online at least once a week, reportedly. A graduate of Kyoto University, Kawata became Japan's youngest female mayor in November 2023 at the age of just 33. Previously, she worked as a private secretary to a lawmaker of Japan's upper house. Her move is significant because while Japan's Labor Standard Act mandates 14 weeks of maternity leave, this did not apply to elected officials. Although the country's House of Representatives amended its rules in November last year, allowing maternity leave, there are no precise rules for heads of local governments. That's not all. Elected members who take leave for childbirth are treated as absent and have to cite the reason as accident or unforeseen circumstances. While some have argued that an elected official's absence from the workplace is a waste of taxpayers' money, Kawata sees her decision as a catalyst for fostering a culture of better work-life balance. And this has also brought to the fore the struggle that women face when it comes to balancing their career and family. Amid a declining birth rate, employers in Japan demand long working hours, societal pressure often compelling women to quit their jobs to raise children. And this debate also assumes significance as the gender gap in Japan is quite significant. For instance, less than 15% members in the country's lower house are women. The gap is more visible at the grassroots with only 80 female leaders heading a municipality. And the wage difference is also significant, with women earning only about 75% of what men are paid, reportedly. Now, elected officials availing maternity leave is rare in other parts of the world as well. In 1990, the then Pakistan Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto became the first elected world leader, in fact, to give birth in office. However, she did not formally take maternity leave. On the other hand, ex-New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern created history in 2018, remember, by becoming the first elected world leader to avail 6 weeks of maternity leave. And in her absence, the Deputy Prime Minister managed the day-to-day functioning of the government. The artificial intelligence boom is facing a terrifying new reality check. The world's most powerful tech titans are sounding the alarm over a lethal convergence of code and biology. In a stunning move, the architects of AI are warning that their own creations could soon unlock the next generation of bioweapons. Take a look.
artificial intelligence is attracting trillions in investment, transforming industries and promising breakthroughs once thought impossible. From drug discovery to scientific research, AI is being hailed as the technology that could redefine the 21st century. But now, some of the people leading that revolution are warning that the same technology could also create entirely new security risks. The technology is becoming more capable with each passing year, and that is precisely why a new warning is capturing attention. This warning is not coming from critics of artificial intelligence. It is coming from the executives who are building it. Leaders from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, and Meta, along with other prominent voices, have urged the US Congress to strengthen biosecurity protections, arguing that future AI systems could make advanced biological knowledge more accessible than ever before. Their concern centers on synthetic DNA and RNA. Today, researchers can order synthetic genetic material for legitimate scientific work. But as AI becomes better at analyzing complex biological problems, experts fear that bad actors could potentially use advanced systems to accelerate dangerous research. Powerful technologies often carry dual-use risks. The internet transformed communication, but also created new cyber threats. Drones revolutionized photography, but it also changed modern warfare. Now, AI may be approaching a similar crossroads. And that is perhaps why industry leaders are calling for mandatory screening of synthetic DNA orders and stronger safeguards before future AI models become even more capable. The debate highlights a broader challenge facing governments worldwide. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Switching gears for now, according to a report in the South China Morning Post, China has found a new source of high-quality quartz in Tibet. Quartz is basically a critical building block used for semiconductor manufacturing. And China is the world's largest importer of the material. The quartz has been discovered in an area of Tibet, in rock. In fact, according to the report, the quartz deposits are high in purity with silica contents above 99.995%. High purity quartz is used to make the crucibles needed to produce silicon chips and solar cells. It's also the gold standard ingredient behind countless high-tech products, some of which China already dominates globally. The Asian giant, in fact, is the world's largest importer of the material, with most of it coming from the United States. According to the study, the researchers found that these were discovered to be holding considerable potential to produce high-purity quartz. With silica contents above 99.995%, analysts say the finding gives China a significant opportunity to develop high-end quartz resources and has the potential to affect the tech rivalry between China and the US as well, perhaps. The research attributed to the University of Science and Technology in China and the China Geological Survey has been published in the European Journal of Mineralogy. In India, a major industrial tragedy has struck the Visakhapatnam steel plant in Andhra Pradesh. At least 10 people have lost their lives. Several others have been seriously injured after molten steel spilled during operations, triggering a massive fire inside the facility. Authorities have launched rescue efforts. Prime Minister Modi has expressed grief on the mishap. A routine work shift turned into a devastating tragedy at the steel plant. The fire incident occurred after a container carrying molten steel reportedly malfunctioned inside the plant, leading to a catastrophic industrial accident. According to the preliminary information, reportedly, a ladle carrying tons of molten metal became dislodged while being transported, and moments later the container crashed, causing molten steel to spill across the work area and trigger a massive fire inside the steel melting shop. The intense heat and flames left several workers trapped, with many suffering severe burn injuries. Emergency teams, including the plant's fire department and multiple fire engines, rushed to the scene and launched rescue operations. Several injured workers were shifted to the nearby hospitals for treatment. A number of them remain in critical condition. Meanwhile, the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister expressed shock and grief over the incident. The Chief Minister spoke with the district officials and directed all departments to coordinate rescue, relief, and medical assistance for the victims and their families. Prime Minister Modi also expressed condolences, calling the incident deeply saddening. The Prime Minister's office announced relief of 2 lakh rupees from the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund for the families of each deceased worker, while those injured will receive 50,000 rupees. Former Chief Minister Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy also conveyed his condolences and demanded a comprehensive inquiry into the accident, stressing that worker safety must remain a top priority. The tragedy also reviving painful memories of a deadly explosion at the same steel plant in 2012, when 16 workers lost their lives during a trial run at an oxygen plant. Authorities are now investigating the exact cause of the tragic accident. A bear on the loose has brought an entire Japanese city to a standstill in a way. For the first time ever, the city has suspended classes in all 94 of its primary and middle schools after the bear was spotted roaming through the residential streets and shopping districts. And with the animal still at large, authorities have launched a massive search operation and urged the residents to stay alert.
A rare bear sighting has triggered unprecedented disruption in Japan's Utsunomiya city. Home to around 500,000 people, the city has shut all 94 municipality-operated primary and middle schools after reports of a bear moving through residential neighborhoods.
I'm so surprised to see a bear come this far into our city. It's never happened before.
The first sighting was reported on Saturday evening near a local park. Hours later, the surveillance cameras captured dramatic footage of the animal sprinting through a shopping street. Despite repeated search efforts, the animal has remained elusive. Police teams and local hunters have intensified their search efforts to locate the animal before it enters another populated area. With fears growing, city authorities have asked residents to keep doors and windows locked, avoid approaching the bear, and take shelter immediately if it is spotted. The incident comes amid a sharp rise in bear encounters across Japan. Japan reported close to 50,000 bear sightings this year. While Asiatic black bears are native to Japan, they are rarely seen this close to Tokyo. This makes Utsunomiya sighting particularly unusual. For now, residents remain on an edge as the search for the roaming bear continues. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Can being lonely turn into a trend? Well, it seems to be happening already. A generation that grew up in the age of social media and is perhaps more connected virtually than any before is now talking about something many may never have expected: loneliness. And on TikTok, it's becoming content, a conversation, a viral trend for millions, a shared experience. Videos that started off with captions like, "You live alone and have no friends, so this is how you spend a Saturday night," quote unquote, are attracting huge audiences reportedly. The TikTok clips typically show people cooking dinner perhaps for one, following a skincare routine, or watching television, or simply spending a quiet evening at home. According to TikTok, more than 66,000 videos carrying the hashtag #NightIn, while another 33,000 use "staying in" as the hashtag. Together, they reflect a growing trend that experts say normalizes and sometimes even glamorizes spending time alone. The trend coming at a time when loneliness is rising among young people. A survey by a British charity, Marmalade Trust, found that 67% of Gen Z respondents feel lonely at least once a week. In fact, nearly 28% said they experience loneliness several times a day. The survey also found that 65% of people aged 18 to 29 have cancelled in-person plans to spend time online instead. Many young users posting these videos say the overwhelming response has been the same. Thousands of viewers admitting they feel isolated as well, reportedly. Others say the content makes them feel less alone and reassures them that their experiences are shared by others as well. Experts point to several factors behind this trend: the lasting social impact of the pandemic, remote work, rising living costs, changing social habits. Data from UK's Office for National Statistics showing 28.7% of adults aged 20 to 34 now live with their parents. The issue extending far beyond social media and Britain, of course. A 2025 WHO report found that 1 in 6 people worldwide experiences loneliness. In India, according to the WHO report, 43% of urban residents feel lonely most of the time. And the issue has sparked an entirely new business opportunity in China, it seems, where millions of young Chinese are now paying for company, with China's loneliness economy, as it's called, valued at roughly $7.4 billion in 2025 itself. So what started out as a TikTok trend basically may actually be revealing a much larger and concerning reality. You would have seen those clips on social media with celebrities flaunting what is called the airport look, taking things a notch higher. What if there was a spacecraft look for space, with astronauts undertaking space journeys in style while embracing fashion? Maybe every journey can look stylish in some way or the other, with even astronauts or astronaut wear now joining the bandwagon, it seems. The brand Prada is flying high, quite literally. The Italian fashion house unveiled on Sunday the inner layer garment set to be worn by NASA astronauts heading to the moon. Here's a sneak peek. The suit reportedly features ventilation tubes knitted into the garment. It has been created in collaboration with the Houston-based space infrastructure developer, Axiom Space. Prada's chief marketing officer reportedly said at an event at Prada's Manhattan store that they have really a broad spectrum of capability and know-how, while the CEO of Axiom Space reportedly said expertise for developing space exploration products can come from lots of seemingly unrelated industries, quote unquote. And while other fashion and apparel companies have reportedly jumped on the space bandwagon, it remains to be seen if other luxury brands will also follow suit, following Prada's unveiling of this fashionable space suit, and what shape that foray into space could take. On several occasions, England football's FIFA World Cup tournaments produced two kinds of headlines, those about the players on the pitch and those about their wives and girlfriends. But 20 years after the 2006 World Cup, that story has changed completely. Back in Germany in 2006, names like Victoria Beckham and others dominated tabloid coverage. When England crashed out against Portugal in a penalty shootout, football experts and team management even blamed the players' partners for distracting the squad, a claim that many viewed as simply unfair and absurd. Fast forward to the 2026 World Cup, and the conversation looks very different. The rise of women's football, driven by the success of England's Lionesses, has transformed the perceptions. Today, many of the partners of England's footballers are attracting attention not because of other reasons, but because of their own professional achievements. Take Naima Corbyn, for example, the wife of Arsenal star. Corbyn works as an intensive care nurse after graduating from King's College. Tulami Benson built her career in advertising after studying public relations and media. Mia Florence, partner of Defender. Rhys James, trained in law, helps prisoners navigate family law issues. England captain Harry Kane's wife, Katie Goodland, holds a degree in sports science and previously worked as a fitness instructor. Beyond England, few football partners command more attention than Georgina Rodriguez, Ronaldo's fiancée. Once a shop assistant in Madrid, she is now a model, entrepreneur, the star of her own series as well. The modern World Cup title is no longer defined by who the woman stands behind. Increasingly, it's about her story, and she is making headlines in her own right. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
Hello, you're watching Beyond Pulse. I'm Shreya Upadhyay. Up ahead, we get you all that has been happening across the world. Let's quickly take you through the headlines that we're tracking at this hour. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's told US President Donald Trump that Israel would defend itself and work to restore security to the north of the country. Yemen-based Houthi group releases a video purportedly showing the missiles that it launched at Tel Aviv. The Houthis joined Iran's attack on Israel, with Tehran launching strikes in response to an Israeli attack on Lebanon's capital, Beirut. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake in the southern Philippines kills at least 35 people after toppling buildings and sparking tsunami warnings across the region. Ten people have been dead and several others injured after molten iron spilled at a steel plant in Visakhapatnam. Rescue operations are in progress. Authorities are providing assistance to the affected families. China's foreign ministry says Beijing and New Delhi are cooperation partners, not competition rivals. China has also shown readiness to keep in communication with Russia and India, calling relations between the three countries crucial for global peace, security, stability, and prosperity. Chinese President Xi Jinping receives a grand welcome in Pyongyang as he arrives for his first visit to North Korea in 7 years. At least 11 people are dead after a migrant boat capsized in the waters off Malta. A fishing vessel rescues around 50 people. As per reports, the migrant boat had departed from Libya. In sports, tennis star Alexander Zverev celebrates his maiden Grand Slam title in Paris. The German won the French Open crown on Sunday to finally end his wait for a major title. Our top story on Pulse this evening: Israel and America launched joint strikes on Iran during the early hours on the 28th of February, triggering one of the most dangerous crises in West Asia. 100 days after the war began, key disagreements remain unresolved. Take a look at our report for more details.
A 100 days have passed since the United States and Israel unleashed strikes on Tehran. From Ayatollah Khamenei's assassination on day one to Trump's end of civilization threat, the United States and Israel battered Iran with a multitude of strikes. In return, Iran's counterattack swept the entire West Asia. Warnings, deadlines, and diplomacy have so far failed to break the impasse between the United States and Iran. The US and Israel together began the war by attacking Iran. Now, over the past 60 days, the United States has been engaging Iran via intermediaries, but Israel remains out of talks. Over the past 100 days, there have been several disagreements between Trump and Netanyahu, with the US president rebuking the Israeli prime minister on several occasions. Now it appears the rift is much deeper. According to a report by the New York Times, Israel launched an espionage operation to snoop into US-Iran negotiations. The report also revealed that American defense personnel deployed in Israel noticed secret phone tapping software on their devices. Despite